It's my wedding day. However, Julian Lancaster shoves me aside when he receives a call from Vivienne Hayes. I'm sorry, honey. Vivi has an upset stomach. I need to bring her some medication for that. I had loved Julian Lancaster for 10 years, and today was our wedding day. This was the most important moment of my life. On the stage stood my beloved. Below, our family and friends were gathered. But just as this perfect moment unfolded, a sharp ringtone shattered the harmony. It was Vivienne Hayes. In an instant, I recognized the caller, not because I had memorized the number, but because Julian had set a special ringtone for her, his first love. Honey, hold on. I need to take this call. Julian's eyes lit up as he pushed me aside without hesitation. He quickly straightened his suit, his face showing a careful, almost eager anticipation, something I had never seen from him in all our years together. I stared at him, feeling as if I were looking at a stranger. Vivi, what's wrong? Julian answered, one hand casually tucked into his pocket. He smiled brightly, his entire demeanor softening. Julian, my stomach hurts. Vivian's weak voice came through the phone. In the next second, the composed man beside me completely panicked. Vivi, don't move. I'll get you some medicine right away. He hung up, not sparing me a single glance before hurrying off. Julian, this is our wedding. Where are you going? I grabbed his sleeve, my fingers trembling, unwilling to let him go. 10 years. It had always been like this for a decade. No matter the time or place, the moment Vivienne called, Julian would drop everything and rush to her like a loyal lapdog. I had thought he would change. He had even promised that from then on, I would be the only one in his heart. But now, once again, he was abandoning me. I'm sorry, honey. Vivi isn't feeling well. I need to bring her some medicine. He uttered the apology quickly, but his actions told a different story. With a harsh grip, he forcefully pried my fingers off his sleeve, his grip digging painfully into my skin. If she's sick, she should see a doctor. You're not one. Has her entire family gone? Are you the only friend she has? Why does she keep calling you? I had endured enough. I had swallowed my anger for years, but that day, I couldn't hold back any longer. The frustration and the resentment had all spilled out. A sharp slap echoed through the hall. I clutched my burning cheek, staring in shock at the man in front of me, dressed in his pristine groom's suit, the embodiment of elegance, yet utterly heartless. Did you just slap me? You actually slapped me for another woman? Tears blurred my vision. My heart, once so full of love for him, shattered in an instant. Julian pointed a finger at me, his voice filled with rage. Clara Whitmore, you're absolutely vile. How dare you speak about Vivi like that? She's not feeling well, so she called me. What's wrong with that? I am her best friend. Of course, I should care about her. If you're going to be this petty, then forget about this wedding. With that, Julian turned and walked away without looking back. On the giant screen behind me, our pre-recorded love story continued to play. How laughable. My parents rushed to my side, gently helping me up. My dear, looking at their aging faces and the strands of gray in their hair, I felt a deep, aching guilt. They had never approved of my relationship with Julian. I had knelt, begged, and even gone on a hunger strike to force their blessing. In the end, they relented. Because of my stubbornness, the once confident and proud couple had been reduced to slumping shoulders and lowered heads. I hated that it took me this long to wake up. Because of me, they had to humble themselves before Julian's parents, unable to lift their heads with dignity. Mom, Dad, the wedding is off. I'm not marrying him. What? The announcement was shattering. But by the time my parents processed it, their faces lit up with uncontrollable joy, their smiles stretching from ear to ear. Sweetheart, you finally came to your senses. Mom looked so overjoyed that she seemed 10 years younger, beaming with relief. I've said it all along. Julian was never the right man for you. You would never be truly happy with him. She was right. It was such a simple truth, yet it had taken me far too long to realize. Thankfully, it wasn't too late. With a steady hand, I took the microphone from the officiant and addressed the crowd. The wedding is cancelled, I announced calmly, but please, enjoy the meal. Think of it as my treat. The words had just left my mouth when Lillian Waverly, my almost mother-in-law, stormed forward, her face twisted in outrage. Absolutely not. After all the effort put into this wedding, how can you just cancel it? I won't allow it. I let out a cold chuckle. Oh? Then, maybe you should take that up with your son. And as for you disagreeing, I fixed her with a pointed stare. Mrs. Lancaster, have you forgotten? Julian and I never even got a marriage certificate. Those were your exact words, weren't they? That until I gave birth to your grandson, I wasn't worthy of officially joining your family. Lillian's face paled as murmurs rippled through the guests. They were whispering now, casting judgmental glances her way. She had assumed my love for Julian meant she could control me and humiliate me whenever she pleased, but she had forgotten one thing. If love wasn't properly cared for, it, too, could spoil. My patience with Julian had reached its limit, and this time, nothing and no one could make me change my mind. Seeing her mother humiliated, Isabel Lancaster, Julian's sister, couldn't sit still any longer. She stormed over, arms crossed. Her tone was filled with mockery as she said, seriously, Clara? You're being so petty. Julian was just checking on Vivi. It's not like this hasn't happened before. Why are you making a big deal out of it this time? Because I was a fool before, I said flatly. I am not anymore. I watched as the Lancaster family launched into a full-blown attack, but their words no longer had any effect on me. Then, Lillian's eyes flickered with sudden calculation. Clinging to her last hope, she sneered. But you're carrying my grandchild. She spoke as if she had me backed into a corner. Clara, you're a woman. You should understand the importance of reputation and family honor. You're pregnant with my son's child, so of course, you have to marry into our family. Otherwise, rumors will spread and your reputation will be ruined. I stared at her, stunned by her shamelessness. Mrs. Lancaster Lancaster, are you seriously implying that morals and decency are only meant for women? Do men not have to follow them? Lillian was at a loss for words, unable to counter me. I smirked, placing a hand on my stomach. And don't worry about the baby. If it comes down to it, I'll just raise the child myself. At that moment, Dad and Mom stepped forward, standing firmly by my side, facing off against the Lancasters. My daughter's worth isn't for you to judge, Dad said firmly. The engagement is off, and that child has nothing to do with your family anymore. Mom backed him up without hesitation, saying, if my daughter decides to keep the baby, it'll have our family name. If she doesn't, that's her choice, too. You. Lillian stomped her foot in frustration, her desperation finally showing. Think carefully, Clara. If you break things off with Julian, who would want to marry you after you've already been with someone else? Dad let out a dry laugh, his voice firm. Not a problem. The Whitmores have more than enough money. My daughter will marry when she wants to, if she wants to. And if she doesn't, we'll take care of her just fine. Mom wasn't about to back down either. That's right. Honestly, instead of worrying about my daughter, who is far too good for your son, you should be more worried about your son. After all, he's the one we've decided isn't worth keeping. I turned to look at my parents, gratitude welling up in my heart. Even at my lowest, they stood by me. Lillian, realizing she had lost this battle, clenched her jaw and exhaled sharply. Fine. If that's how you want to play it, then give back every cent my son spent on you. What money? I frowned at Lillian, utterly confused by her sudden demand. The money Julian spent on you all these years. You need to pay back every single cent. Lillian stood there, looking self-righteous. Isabel quickly chimed in, nodding along. That's right. You have to pay every penny back. I couldn't help but laugh. Mrs. Lancaster, are you serious? Didn't Julian hand over his entire paycheck to you for household expenses the moment he got paid? I raised an eyebrow. For years, I was the one covering rent, appliances, clothes, and everything. Honestly, I had almost forgotten about it. But since you brought it up, let's settle this properly. You owe me money. I pulled up my phone and opened my financial records. Every transaction was neatly listed. Julian hadn't just relied on me. He had lived off me. Everything from his underwear to his apartment had been bought with my money. No wonder Lillian was so desperate to defend this marriage. Without me, she wasn't sure they could ever find another golden opportunity like this again. This, Lillian stammered and staggered back a few steps, looking visibly shaken by the astronomical figure displayed on my phone. Where would I even get that kind of money? Even if Julian worked his entire life, he wouldn't be able to earn a fraction of what I had spent on him. How ironic. The man I had poured my heart and wealth into had turned around and betrayed me for another woman. Even a dog knew loyalty, but some people didn't even measure up to that. I watched Lillian put on her best sob story, but I only smiled coldly. Not my problem. I just know one thing, debts must be paid. That's how the world works. I met her eyes. If I don't get my money back within 3 days, I'll see you in court. To be honest, the money itself didn't matter much to me. I wasn't someone who nitpicked over every dime. But after seeing the Lancasters' shameless behavior, I realized that some people would never be grateful, no matter how much you gave them. They needed a harsh lesson, one they wouldn't forget. Money, money, Lillian muttered blankly, pacing back and forth in agitation. Then, all of a sudden, she spun around and shouted at me, fine. If you want the money back, then return the wedding gift first. Isabel joined in instantly. That's right. My brother gave you $1 million as a wedding gift. You can't just keep it. Hearing their ridiculous argument, Mom and Dad exchanged a glance, both of them sighing in exasperation. I held on to the last shred of my patience as I explained. Mrs. Lancaster, have you forgotten? When your family came to propose, you called me desperate and refused to pay a single cent in wedding gifts. It was my parents. Wanting to save your family from embarrassment, they took $1 million out of their own pockets and told everyone it came from your family. My parents immediately confirmed my words. Mom, wrapping her arms around me protectively, said, that's right. We weren't going to argue over it. That money was meant as a starting fund for both of them. Her voice hardened. But since your family has chosen to be so disgraceful, there's nothing more to discuss. You, Lillian's face twisted. Realizing she could no longer squeeze any money out of me, she finally lost control. She jabbed a finger in my face, ranting furiously, her anger spilling out uncontrollably. You shameless woman, Clara Whitmore. You were the one who clung to my son, begging to marry into our family. And now, you're backing out? Her voice turned vicious. Do you think having a little money makes you special? Let me tell you the truth. Julian never even thought you were good enough for him. Who knows if that bastard in your belly is even his? Julian has plenty of women lining up for him, but a used up, discarded woman like you? Good luck finding someone who would want you now. My parents' expressions darkened instantly as they heard those filthy words. Without another glance at Lillian, I pointed toward the security guards. What are you standing around for? Get them out of here.